Well, welcome everybody to another in our series of video chats, primarily aimed at the Half Earth Project Educator Ambassadors. This particular conversation, I've got a really interesting sort of a panel put together here, and it comes under the topic of what can we do? What are some of the simpler things we can do to save, protect, restore biodiversity? And one of those things might be how you buy your coffee. So that's something we're going to talk about today. And I'm going to say hello to my three panelists here. And I'm going to ask them to go ahead and introduce themselves. Why don't we start with you, Katie?
Sure. Hi. Thanks for having me. I'm Katie Fallon. I'm here in Morgantown, West Virginia. And I'm an author, and I am a bird watcher. And I care a lot about bird conservation, especially in my region.
And you wrote a book that I think did pretty well called Cerulean Blues. And I think maybe we'll get a chance to talk about your book and some of your experiences later.
Great. Yes.
Great. Then how about you, Bill?
Yeah, my name is Bill Wilson. My office is in South Dartmouth, Massachusetts, where I live on Buzzards Bay. Very nice place. Lots of birds. We have a family of foxes in our back garden this year, which is fun watching them.
There's something we have in common. I've been watching the foxes as well. Despite all the
amazing.
Craziness, it's been a beautiful spring. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we haven't had much spring up here, but we've had a lot, a lot of flora and fauna. Anyhow, in 2008, with a few other people, I started Birds and Beans Coffee, which solely sells coffee that's certified as Smithsonian shade-grown, fair trade, and organic. We source our coffee from Peru, Nicaragua, Guatemala, and Honduras, occasionally from Mexico. And the business has been growing slowly but surely, and we've got a lot to say about coffee and birds and farmers. So,
hi, I'm Ruth Bennett. I'm a research ecologist at the Smithsonian Migratory Birds Center, and we are part of the Smithsonian Conservation Biology Institute and National Zoo. So my office is here in Washington, D.C. at the National Zoo, and we're a team of primarily research ecologists and ornithologists focused on conservation of all stages of migratory birds' life cycles.
I remember years ago when I first encountered bird-friendly coffee, it sounded like a good idea. I had heard of shade-grown coffee, and then I had been buying bird-friendly coffee for a while, and someone said, "What exactly does that mean?" And I had to confess, I wasn't sure what it meant. That might be different than shade-grown, for example. So maybe you could give us a quick definition of bird-friendly coffee.
Absolutely. So bird-friendly coffee is a certification that was designed by the Smithsonian Migratory Birds Center and came to market about the year 2000. So what bird-friendly means is that coffee is 100% organically produced, and it's grown under a shade canopy that's similar to nearby native forest. So we have a whole list of requirements of what the shade above the coffee plants needs to look like. And those requirements are based on our internal research, primarily from Mexico and Peru, about what migratory birds and also resident tropical birds need. So our requirements are that the coffee plantation needs to maintain 40% canopy cover. The tree species planted above the coffee need to be primarily native species. And they need to have a height of at least 12 meters. And they need to have 3 different distinct canopy strata that are represented. So we need some trees that are really tall, trees that are kind of intermediate height, and those are typically the trees that are planted above coffee, and then some small trees or large shrubs as well. And that component of shade has been shown to provide good habitat for our migratory bird species that overwinter down in Latin America, and also for a subset of the resident bird species that are there that would be using forest that has been converted to coffee.
So I was interested in ceruleans because of the problems they were facing in their breeding habitat. And then I sort of learned about shade coffee after, as kind of an afterthought, that the birds were losing habitat, not just here in Appalachia where most of them breed, but also in the tropics where they're spending the winters. So they don't really get a break anywhere they go. They're losing habitat everywhere. And they go all the way to South America, to Venezuela, Colombia, Ecuador, and Peru. And they stop over in Central America on the way to South America, and they use shade coffee farms where they stop over and then where they eventually end up to spend the winter. Bird-friendly coffee tastes better than sun coffee.
I admit it is delicious. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, that's something our coffee roasters across the world tell us. If coffee comes from a shaded plantation, it always tastes better than a full sun plantation.
Well, I mean, get good taste, help communities, and help biodiversity. I think that just sounds like win-win-win to me.